Some rules seem unquestionable, until the day life puts something, or someone, in the way and changes all plans. Camila Duarte, did you know that your first day of work in the elegant mansion of Enrique Vasconcelos, in the upscale neighborhood of Gardens of the Valley, it wasn't the right time to take a risk? With her mother gravely ill waiting at home and every penny of her salary already committed, she was determined to follow every instruction to the letter. But fate has a curious way of rewriting scripts. It was in the almost solemn silence of that last one that she heard something impossible to ignore, a boy's suppressed cry. A sound that wasn't part of the rules, but that spoke directly to the heart. In that moment, any command lost strength in the face of the most human instinct, the instinct to care. It was a silent call, a request that needed no words. What Camila didn't know is that, by opening that forbidden door, she wasn't just comforting a Korean boy. I was, without realizing it, beginning a healing process that would overcome old wounds and forever transform the lives of those who lived there. A transformation that would show that wealth and simplicity are not opposites, but complementary. What if I told you it all started with a simple lullaby, that a moment of genuine presence could alleviate years of loneliness, childhood anxiety, and even the pain of loss? Get ready, because this story will prove that sometimes you have to break the right rules to rebuild whole hearts. Camila arrived early at Gardens of the Valley, impressed by the grandeur of the mansion of Enrique Vasconcelos, the high gate, the impeccably manicured gardens, and the silence that seemed to blanket every corner gave the impression that this place held more history than it let on. With her mother sick at home and the urgent need to keep her job, she took a deep breath, mentally repeating that she would follow all the rules, without exception. Right at the entrance, he received detailed instructions from the housekeeper. Do not enter that last one. The woman's serious tone made it clear that this was not mere guidance, but a non-negotiable order. Camila nodded without arguing, though curiosity throbbed inside. After all, why so much mystery? Still, she convinced herself it wasn't worth the risk, at least not in first day of work. The work began mechanically, organizing books, polishing furniture, helping in the kitchen. Every corner of the house was sweating. Wealth and simplicity at the same time, a rare contrast that drew attention. Camila tried to concentrate, but her mind kept returning to the reason she had come here, paying for her mother's treatment. This urgency made each task feel like part of a larger mission. Still, there was something strange in the air. Between the distant sound of the garden fountain and the footsteps echoing on the marble, she sensed an almost heavy silence coming from the forbidden direction. She couldn't explain why, but she had a feeling that sooner or later, this silence would call to her. And perhaps, when it did, she wouldn't be able to ignore it. It was almost noon when Camila, already accustomed to the rhythm of her tasks, heard a sound that made her stop in the middle of the hallway. It wasn't footsteps or furniture being dragged, it was crying. A small cry, but filled with pain. The sound was clearly coming from that last one, the same one she had promised to avoid. She stood still for a few seconds, trying to decide whether she should pretend she hadn't heard, but her heart had already chosen for her. When he opened the door, he found Lucas, a sad-looking boy, huddled in a corner of the room. Tears wet the pillow, and his body trembled not only from crying, but from loneliness. He seemed surprised to see her, but he didn't look away. On the contrary, he seemed to beg for something he himself didn't know how to ask for. That's when Camila instinctively began to sing a lullaby, as soft as her own mother's voice used to be. The effect was almost magical. Little by little, the crying stopped, his eyes grew heavy, and, to her surprise, the boy fell into a deep sleep. Later, she would discover that Lucas suffered from childhood anxiety from the loss of mother and could only sleep with the help of medication. But that day, for the first time in months, sleep came naturally. Camila stood there for a few minutes, watching the boy breathe calmly. She felt something had changed, though she couldn't explain it. It was as if she had crossed not only a forbidden door, but also an invisible barrier, creating a silent connection that could transform not only his life, but hers as well. That same night, while tidying the pantry, Camila was surprised by Enrique Vasconcelos entering the room. He rarely spoke to the staff, but there was something different in his gaze, a mix of curiosity and gratitude. "Were you the one with Lucas today?" he asked, his tone softer than she expected. Camila hesitated for a moment, remembering the order to avoid that last one, but he answered sincerely, "Yes. I just couldn't ignore a crying boy." Enrique was silent for a few seconds, as if choosing his next words carefully. Then he revealed that Lucas hadn't slept without medication since loss of mother and that day, he had fallen asleep within minutes after she sang to him. "You're not trained as a babysitter, are you?" she asked. Camila confirmed, explaining that she had always babysat cousins and neighbors' children, but that she was only there as an assistant. It was then that Enrique made the unexpected proposal, triple her salary for her to be solely responsible for Lucas's care. "What he needs isn't technical expertise, it's genuine presence," he said, with a serious but emotional air. Camila felt the weight of the offer. Accepting meant more time with the boy and more money for his mother's treatment, but it also meant immersing herself in a bond that could change everything. Deep down, she already knew the answer would be yes. There was something about Lucas that awakened a rare protective instinct in her. And, although she didn't know it yet, that moment would be the starting point for a transformation that would transcend any employment contract. The following weeks brought changes no one could ignore. Lucas, previously confined to his room in silence, began venturing into the mansion's hallways. The sound of his laughter echoing through the house seemed to break years of accumulated loneliness. Camila introduced small routines, simple games in the garden, bedtime stories, and even impromptu picnics on the porch. Little by little, that last one it stopped being an isolated territory and became the beating heart of the home. Enrique began to notice something curious. He, who had been away for hours at meetings and on trips, began coming home earlier. At first, she justified it by saying she wanted to keep up with her son's progress, but over time, it became clear there was something more. It was the way Camila looked at Lucas, with sincere care and without judgment, that moved him. That presence seemed to bring a calm that not even the wealth and simplicity combined they could offer alone. The mansion, once impeccably organized but emotionally cold, now had a life of its own. Fresh flowers in the kitchen, toys scattered throughout the garden, and, most importantly, voices and stories being shared at the table. Enrique, who had always maintained a reserved air, began to allow himself to participate in these moments. And he discovered that it wasn't just Lucas who was changing, he himself felt a new lightness. Camila, in turn, felt part of something bigger. It wasn't just a job, it was a project. Family transformation, and, although she didn't say it out loud, she was beginning to realize that that house, that boy, and even that reserved man were becoming an essential part of her life. Over time, Camila and Enrique's conversations began to linger. Initially, they were quick exchanges about Lucas's routine, but soon they turned into conversations about books, music, and even childhood memories. Enrique, who rarely spoke about the past, opened up about the pain of loss of mother of Lucas and how it had left him emotionally distant. Camila listened unhurriedly, offering not ready-made advice, but a silent and genuine listening. Simple moments became the most memorable. A shared coffee in the kitchen while the rain fell outside, laughter during a board game, and even a day when Enrique helped Camila cook, proving that not every businessman lives solely on meetings and contracts. Little by little, something impossible to ignore emerged, a silent but constant affection that grew with each gesture. 3 months later, during Lucas's 5th birthday party, Enrique surprised everyone. In the middle of the celebration, he called Camila over, in front of friends and family. With his son smiling among them, he made a marriage proposal which drew applause and tears. "You brought life back to my home, and to my heart," he said, his voice breaking. Camila, thrilled, accepted. Not because she saw financial security or status in it, but because she felt that, together, they were building something that combined human values, genuine presence and one true love who didn't see each other every day. And, deep down, he knew that yes, was the beginning of a new chapter for the three of them. 2 years later, life in the mansion of Enrique Vasconcelos no longer remembered the cold, silent days of the past. Lucas grew up surrounded by affection, security, and play, and the old childhood anxiety had given way to a healthy curiosity about the world. Camila, now his wife, maintained a balance between wealth and simplicity, teaching his son that the greatest treasures are invisible to the eyes. Enrique, for his part, had learned that true success wasn't just about business, but about being present. Family mornings, evening conversations, and even small routines like walking Lucas to school became priorities. He discovered that sincere Cariandaman values are legacies much more valuable than any material inheritance. Home, once just a luxury address in the gardens of the valley, became a haven of stories, laughter, and shared memories. Close friends noticed the change. The once distant man now had a different sparkle in his eyes. And everyone knew that much of this transformation came from Camila's constant and loving presence. So, between commitments and simple tasks, that reconstructed family continued to grow, proving that love doesn't depend on perfect circumstances. It depends on choices, and their choice was to stay together, every day, as if each morning were a new opportunity to start over. How many times have you avoided a forbidden door, for fear of what you might find? What if, behind it, lay the opportunity to change your life and the life of someone who needed you? The story of Camila, Enrique, and Lucas reminds us that, often, what transforms things isn't grand strategies, but small gestures. Genuine presencia and sincere care. Think, who in your life needs a little more attention, listening, or a simple gesture of affection? Maybe what seems like a small detail today is actually the turning point for a whole new world. Family transformation or personal. And that goes for any of us, no matter where we live or what we do. Also remember that human values and true love, these are not abstract concepts. They reveal themselves in the choices we make every day, being present, listening, supporting, and, when necessary, having the courage to break the rules to do good. Now, if this story inspired you, how about continuing to follow content that touches the heart and reminds us of what truly matters? Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and come be part of a community that believes that love can change everything.